Chapter 417, The Importance of Intel. The concert began as scheduled, and Teresa and Aldina separated, completely immersed in the orchestra's performance. In Trier, the citizens displayed immense enthusiasm and respect for the arts. During the Living Artists exhibition, the daily number of visitors surpassed that of those who frequented various execution grounds to witness executions. Franca withdrew her gaze with regret and closed her eyes, savoring a symphony that evoked the image of moonlight glistening on a tranquil lake at night. Lumian had received no formal education in this domain, so his knowledge of music was limited to three things. Firstly, Auror's occasional humming and the melodies of shepherds' flutes. Secondly, songs from places like All Tavern, Cordoue Village Square, and Salle de Bal Brise, which were often laced with suggestive lyrics and rhythms. Lastly, the psalms from the Eternal Blazing Sun's Mass. However, now, he found himself deeply moved by the band's performance. His mood gradually settled, as if he could envision Cordoue Village and the highland pasture nestled in the darkness. It was a serene night, adorned with a canopy of stars. Lumian wasn't entirely captivated by the music. From the corner of his eye, he scrutinized the lady impersonating Teresa, carefully observing her every move. The impostor Teresa appeared highly emotional, her demeanor shifting from sorrowful during the lyrical passages to exuberant during the ensemble. She seemed to be completely attuned to the fluctuations in the music. Lumian pondered whether she had an exceptional affinity for music, or if she harbored a strong desire to perform and convey something profound. If it was the latter, Lumian could tentatively conclude that the impostor Teresa was likely a Sequence 7 actor. Based on his understanding of the mother tree of desire's boon pathways, Beyonders typically wouldn't be so profoundly affected by the desires associated with a sequence after moving beyond it. However, there might still be a more pronounced influence compared to ordinary individuals. As time passed, the orchestra played 3 symphonies, culminating in the conductor turning, bowing, and addressing the audience. The final movement is titled The Girl Under the Moon. I'd like to invite the most beautiful lady here onto the stage, so that our entire orchestra can have the honor of taking a photograph with her as a beautiful memento. Franca quickly lowered her head. She had no desire to be chosen and become the center of attention. This would embarrass her a little. Nonetheless, she wasn't overly concerned. Having altered her appearance and height with Lai, she could only be considered ordinary and mildly charming. After all, the greatest challenge for a demoness of pleasure when tailing a target lay in their inherent beauty, charisma, and attention-grabbing aura. If she didn't become invisible or remain concealed in the shadows, she ran the risk of being discovered. Such requests were not uncommon in Trier, and several women in the audience were eager to step forward. To them, being chosen would symbolize a significant acknowledgement of their appearance and demeanor. Lumian's gaze swept over the attendees, eventually settling on Aldina and the impostor Teresa. The former seemed visibly excited, her anticipation clear in her demeanor. On the other hand, the latter's body exhibited an abnormal tension, and she trembled slightly, a mix of excitement and nervousness evident in her demeanor. Upon witnessing these reactions, Lumian couldn't help but smirk slightly, gaining a rough understanding of the fake Teresa's situation. The desire for recognition was one of the fundamental desires of a Sequence 6 recipient of the Mother Tree of Desire pathway. Hence, it was likely that the fake Teresa was a Sequence 6 recipient, not yet a Sequence 5 fallen tree spirit. Otherwise, her yearning for recognition wouldn't be so overwhelming. The invitation to bring the most beautiful lady onto the stage for a photograph wasn't a mere coincidence. Lumian had sponsored it himself. After discovering that the first stage of the date between the impostor Teresa and Aldina involved attending a concert, Lumian had sought out the Deland Music Hall to ascertain the evening's repertoire. He had then devised a plan in line with Trier's style based on the title of the final movement, attempting to bribe the orchestra. Ultimately, he had succeeded in convincing the conductor, not just because he had used Franca's 1,000 Verl door, but also because Lumian had provided a compelling reason. It was a romantic gesture intended for a certain lady, a gesture driven solely by affection, without any expectation of reciprocation or leaving a name. Romantic gestures had a special place in the hearts of these Trier artists. Through this event, Lumion sought to detect whether the fake Teresa harbored any exceptional desires. A skilled hunter couldn't simply wait for opportunities to arise, they had to know how to create them. Of course, the precondition was having sufficient intel. Otherwise, planning with precision or avoiding easy detection would be impossible. The conductor scanned the room and singled out the woman whom he believed to be the most beautiful. He also assumed that she was the object of the young man's affection from earlier in the day. Such extraordinary beauty was a rarity. The woman, with her bright gray eyes and neatly tied black hair, gracefully approached the orchestra, while the fake Teresa slouched in her seat, unable to hide her disappointment, regret, and frustration. "How should I address you?" the conductor inquired of the lady in the elegant black court dress beside him. With a gentle and melodious voice, she replied, "Clarice." Franca gazed at Clarice with admiration, finding her exceptionally captivating, although she couldn't quite pinpoint the reason why. After the concert concluded, Lumion and Franca decided not to tail Adana and the imposter Teresa. Instead, they headed straight to room 502 in apartment 25 on Rue Manier in the Square District. This was a rented apartment that they had temporarily cleared out by paying. Across the way, in room 401 of Building 23, was Adana's chosen rendezvous point for clandestine meetings. Tonight, she would return to that very room with the fake Teresa. With Lumion and Franca's enhanced beyonder vision, the distance between them and the target room wasn't enough to obscure their view of the situation inside. Their primary objective now was to remain hidden and avoid detection by the fake Teresa while observing. Before long, the window of room 401 in apartment 23 across the street illuminated. Several gas wall lamps cast a bright glow throughout the living room. Immediately after, Lumion witnessed the passionate embrace between the fake Teresa and Adana as they approached the glass window. Their longing was palpable, but they also wanted to shield their intimate moment from prying eyes. Quite focused, Lumion teased with a smile. Franca didn't reply, her breathing growing heavier. "Be prepared," Lumion whispered to Franca, making sure the fake Teresa's attention was on her companion. Franca nodded slightly and responded in her usual tone, "Got it." Her primary mission was to watch for any unexpected developments. Without hesitation, Lumion activated the black mark on his right shoulder. A faint light shimmered beneath his clothing, and he vanished from the shadows of Building 25. Across the street in the apartment, Adana and the imposter Teresa wrestled with the curtains while they were stuck to one another, attempting to shield the glass window. Lumion's form materialized suddenly, 2 meters behind the fake Teresa, facing Adana, whose eyes were clouded with desire and cheeks flushed. Adana's eyes narrowed, and her pupils dilated. She couldn't fathom how a tall, slender man with blonde hair and blue eyes had appeared in her room out of nowhere. For a moment, it felt like she was trapped in a surreal dream. The disjunction between her physical senses and her bewildered mind was stark. Almost simultaneously, Lumion let out a heavy harumph. 2 beams of white light shot from his nose, targeting the fake Teresa and affecting Adana. In unison, the 2 women closed their eyes and slumped into unconsciousness. Lumion acted swiftly, catching the fake Teresa before she could fall to the ground. He then raised his right palm and delivered a firm strike behind her ear. A mystical coma combined with a physical one. With the fake Teresa safely incapacitated, Lumion gently placed her on the carpet, keeping a cautious distance from the unconscious Adana. He squatted beside the woman he suspected to be a recipient and began searching her dress and handbag for canisters. Having familiarized himself with the mystical drugs commonly used by the Bliss Society, Lumion located a canister of sedatives, unscrewed the cap, and brought it to the fake Teresa's nose, allowing her to inhale its contents for more than 10 seconds. Only then did Lumion exhale a sigh of relief. He stowed away the sedative, no longer concerned about the imposter Teresa waking up suddenly. He stood up and made his way to the glass window, where the curtain was only partially closed. Lumion signaled to the fifth floor of the opposite building with his thumb and index finger forming a circle, while his other three fingers remained extended. He was informing Franca that the operation had been successful. The target was under control, and she could join him now. Lumion might need to employ magic mirror divination later. After drawing the curtains shut, Lumion turned his attention to the unconscious fake Teresa and sighed inwardly. Intel is crucial. The same principle applied to the synergy of abilities. Without a rough understanding of the names and characteristics of Sequence 9 to Sequence 5 within the actor pathway, along with knowledge of their corresponding desires and states, Lumion wouldn't have taken such a calculated risk. He wouldn't have been able to resolve the situation in just a few seconds. As for the contractee's three abilities, if they weren't carefully chosen and harmonized, they could easily be defeated by a Sequence 9 hunter, much like the Malthorifice monster in Cordu's ruins. Even with Spirit World Traversal and the spell of Harumph, Lumion might stand a chance against some Sequence 5s, but it would be a formidable challenge to sustain such efforts. As Lumion waited for Franca to join him in the adjacent apartment to Adena's, Brown's Sauron remained hidden in the shadows, her keen senses tuned to the situation behind the wall as she gazed at the building opposite. She could already discern the sounds of Adena and the fake Teresa returning to the apartment, along with the rustle of curtains being drawn. These scenes seemed to play out vividly in her mind. The situation tormented her. She felt a deep sense of injustice and pain, as though she had willingly sent her lover into the arms of her romantic rival. Despite her understanding that this was a carefully planned trap, and that her lover and her rival had been intimate on multiple occasions, she still felt an overwhelming sense of worry and anxiety. The sporadic noises only fueled her imagination with various scenarios. Standing there made her uncomfortable, and leaning against the wall didn't alleviate her unease. Observing Franca and her young lover's concealed apartment across the way, Brown's Sauron couldn't help but mutter with frustration. Why haven't they launched their attack yet?